There is no shortage of discourse around 12 minutes, a game in which you are stuck in a time loop trying to survive a violent intrusion and piece together the past. A lot of the buzz is focused on the story beats and endings, and it's not so positive. This video isn't about that. Framework is a channel about positivity, and when I look at 12 minutes, I see a game that's using very intricate mechanics to set itself apart. So let's talk about what works, how it works, and just what a looping game is, as defined by 12 minutes. Like I said before, this video isn't about the story of 12 minutes. But given the nature of the game and the dialogue that is shown on screen, there are some unavoidable spoilers like plot points and puzzle solutions, so just be warned. At the very least, any clockmakers out there ought to enjoy this.
Ah, yes, I am the clockmaker. You called for me?
Oh, you came in a little early there, but that's fine. Welcome to the video, Mr. Clockmaker.
Well, you know what they say. To be on time is to be late, and to be early is to be on time.
Right, they do say that. Speaking of, 12 minutes isn't the first time we've seen a concept like this in video games. 2019's The Outer Wilds has a 22-minute loop, during which you can explore a solar system to gain knowledge about the origins of the universe. Released around the same time as 12 minutes was the Skyrim mod turned full-on game The Forgotten City, in which you repeatedly visit an ancient Roman city to learn about its ultimate fate. 12 minutes joins this growing trend of looping games by presenting its own conundrum. A man breaks into your apartment, questions your wife, and attacks the both of you, and the cycle repeats until you find a way to break it. But what exactly is a looping game? Well, it might be helpful to start by talking about what a looping game isn't. And it isn't a roguelike. These two genres share similarities that can get us started, but there are some important differences that set looping games like 12 minutes apart. Roguelikes, in a nutshell, are defined by the consequences of dying. If you die in Hades, you have to start your escape from the underworld all over again, without any of the boons you earned in the last run. If you die in Loop Hero, you lose your collected resources and return to camp. Both games offer permanent upgrades after a time, but by and large you have to start from scratch anytime you wipe. While a successful run in a roguelike is based on gaining power-ups and stacking temporary skills, completing 12 minutes is the culmination of gaining and applying knowledge. As creative director Luigi Antonio told Game Informer, "My goal was to explore the concept of accumulated knowledge. How would it be if, in a game, you have this information that keeps accumulating?" No knowledge is lost when a loop ends. Once our protagonist learns something, he always knows it. For example, you can find a surprise present in the bedroom dresser. It's baby clothes, because tonight your wife is going to reveal that she's pregnant.
Ah, congratulations on the baby. My children are all these clocks I made.
Fast forward a few loops and you need to prove to her that you're living the same 12 minutes over and over. You can do so by presenting her with information you couldn't possibly know if you weren't repeating the same moments over and over. Show her the unopened gift, tell her you already know what's inside, and she'll believe you.
I know there were baby clothes inside.
I just bought them today.
Roguelikes are also heavily randomized. The many chambers of the underworld shift as Zagreus explores them in Hades. Each map in Loop Hero is totally different based on how you draw and place your cards. 12 minutes is the total opposite. It's set in a small, self-contained apartment, and you can count the number of fixed rooms on one hand. You've got a living room with an attached closet, plus an adjacent bathroom, and of course a bedroom. Technically, there's a hallway leading to the apartment as well, but you can't return to that normally. That'll come up again later. This smaller scale gives 12 minutes its own vibe, and it helps you, the player, recognize its moving parts. With only a handful of rooms to monitor, it's easy to see the permutations you can cause during each loop. Antonio explained this in an interview with The Gamer. Quote, "It is very hard to convey to players the consequences of their actions when things are so complex. So slowly, I started to compress the amount of time and the size of your environment until it became 12 minutes in a small apartment. By removing everything that's useless, we were left with everything from the first loop to the last loop that has meaning and makes sense. His words are true. Everything on the fixed map serves a purpose. There are no red herring objects to pick up. Even something as innocuous as a spoon on a table comes into play when the couple eats dessert. Furthermore, no randomization means that items can always be found in the same place, allowing you to quickly gather what you need for whatever you're attempting to do during a loop. The phone is always in the purse, the knife is always on the counter, the all-important pocket watch is always behind the vent in the bathroom.
Pocket watch? Oh, I think I like this game even more now.
Just as there are fixed objects, there are also fixed events in 12 minutes. Your wife always starts the loop inside the bathroom, humming to herself. The cop, or at least the person claiming to be a cop, always shows up at the same time. So if you want a good look at him, you can glance through your peephole when you hear the elevator ding. This set repetition actually reminds me of the recent Hitman games, and not just because the cop kinda looks like Agent 47 with a beard. Executing the perfect hit in those games requires you to set events in motion, be at the right place at the right time, and make specific use of the tools and environment around you. But one major difference is that these repeated setups don't factor into the story of Hitman. Whereas the narrative of 12 minutes hinges on the fact that our protagonist knows he's repeating the same cycle over and over. Furthermore, if things go south in Hitman, it's possible to salvage a run by scrambling away and trying a different tactic. That's not the case in 12 minutes. It's possible to completely botch a loop. At some point, you're going to need to knock your wife unconscious, and doing so involves dissolving some sleeping pills into her mug of water. If you don't do this discreetly in another room, she'll notice and won't drink any water herself.
No. I'm sleeping fine, but thanks, I guess.
It's also possible to sabotage a loop for your own amusement. I 100% flushed the all-important pocket watch down the toilet just to see if I could.
This is unforgivable. What did that pocket watch ever do to you?
If you royally screw something up like this, you have no choice but to bail on the loop, and you can quickly reset it by attempting to leave the apartment. It's one of many shortcuts 12 minutes offers to help keep things moving. These shortcuts are important for any looping game. You don't need to see all 12 individual minutes play out every time if you've been through the loop enough and know what you're doing. So you can quickly reset by attempting to leave through the front door, or skip ahead to when the cop arrives by waiting in the closet.
Now we wait.
There are also shortcuts in terms of dialogue and setting up certain events. Remember when we showed our wife the baby clothes gift earlier? Once you establish that, you can simply tell her you know about the baby clothes in the drawer to prove you're in a loop without having to show her the gift every time. This is one of the purest examples of the accumulated knowledge Antonio wanted to show off with this game. Once our protagonist knows something to be true, he doesn't have to prove its veracity every time. He also doesn't have to die every time for the loop to reset. You can bail early via the front door, but there are other ways to reset the loop naturally. 12 minutes is a very deliberate name for this game. No matter what you're doing, even if you're in the middle of a sentence, when those 12 minutes expire, the loop resets. This is another signature of looping games. The reset happens no matter what.
Everything points to her.
Listen up. What do you know about... What?
So let's say you execute everything perfectly. You've been through the loop enough times, gained all the necessary knowledge, and put the pieces in place. What then? Well, you're treated to a very cinematic experience as the game's climactic moments start playing out. And I do mean cinematic. Antonio was heavily inspired by film when developing this game. As he told PC Invasion, "What attracted me more to the movie-like experience was the player's interpretation of the characters and peeling back the layers to reveal who they truly are. That's when the game started to go towards this genre, and I began looking at thriller movies such as Rear Window. The top-down, almost voyeuristic perspective of the game definitely brings Hitchcock thrillers to mind, especially since Rear Window and 12 Minutes are both confined to an apartment. And he's not the only filmmaker getting a nod. The hallway carpet is a perfect match for the hotel carpet in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. There are certainly way more film comparisons to be made, and I could go on, but I'll reel myself in and just make one point. The cinematic quality of the game relies on the deliberate looping mechanic. The personal discoveries, the many confrontations, these are inextricable from the repeating loop that defines 12 minutes. It's an intrinsic part of the game's film-like presentation, not just an homage for the sake of making a movie reference.
My favorite film is Clockstoppers. Just wanted to throw that out there.
12 minutes didn't invent the concept of a looping game, but it does help to define the genre. Despite a shared repetition, looping games aren't randomized like roguelikes. They are organized in a fixed, narrative fashion that's conducive to repeating the loop and carrying your accumulated knowledge forward every time, with shortcuts to help you move along more quickly. The loop can end with your death or by a simple expiration of time, and it's possible to reset it yourself if you screw up your carefully laid plans. After all, the theme of 12 minutes is that actions have consequences, and sometimes those consequences mean you'll hit a dead end. But the victory in a looping game is in overcoming that dead end and going back to find what you missed and bringing it forward. From my end, it's tough to define an emerging genre. It's even harder if you're designing a game that's part of the new trend. But I enjoyed playing 12 minutes for the experimentation and effort it showed. You don't have to look very hard to see the ways it didn't please some of its players, but I admire it for putting its best foot forward. And because looping games aren't going away anytime soon, I'm going to be thinking about these concepts for some time. With similar mechanics bleeding into AAA products like Arcane's Deathloop, it won't be long before we're all talking about the looping game.
Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. If you like what Framework is doing, definitely hit that subscribe button in the middle. It would help me out an awful lot if you do. And if you want to see what we've already cooked up, you can hit that link on the far left. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.